Namaste. Welcome to Such Conversations Matter. Conversations that represent the future we should have. I'm your host, Saurabh Nanda. Today's guest is Mr. Ankit Chhabra, who is one of the core team members of the Sanjhi Sikhiya movement in Punjab. Their flagship program is called the PYLP, or Punjab Youth Leadership Program, which is a fellowship which recruits fellows from all over the country so that they can go into rural India and change processes, change systems, build relationships among people so that the development of those regions takes place. They act as catalysts to strengthen the rural movement. They've started out with education and currently are recruiting for their, at least when we are recording this episode, they are recruiting for the third cohort of their program. Ankit is also from Jalandhar. He has completed his civil engineering from NIT Nagpur. Then he went on to do his master's from Indian Institute of Science, which is the best institute in India for scientific and engineering research, but didn't really find it good enough for him or something which was limiting his passions. And the rest of his journey through through teaching, through the development sector, working with one of the biggest retail groups in the country, managing various non-profits, and finally setting up his base in Punjab. Well, these are going to be some amazing questions, and I discovered Ankit last year on Facebook during the pandemic when I was just looking for like-minded people to connect with, and he lives in Jalandhar. So there is a lot to discuss, and I wanted to share that conversation with all of you. So, hi Ankit, how are you?
I'm very well, Saurabh. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me as part of your show.
I think it's my privilege that you could take out time and be here and share with us some amazing experiences of your life.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Ankit, let me just begin. So this is season 2 of Such Conversations Matter. And, last season I was asking everyone, what are you doing during COVID? How are you managing it?
Mm.
And so this time I'm asking everyone, how was your 2020? So Ankit, how was your 2020? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think 2020 was a year full of so many learnings. I would say, in the sense that people used to say crisis is an opportunity. And one friend corrected me sometime in September, October last year. She said, crisis is full of possibilities. So I think I could experience so many of those possibilities within. Like, life was going on smoothly, one thing leading to another, and suddenly everything is disrupted. So one, it helps you to, I could see the things I was holding on to, things I was seeking, and things I was willing to let go. Right. So I think that was a very good learning. That what's important to me personally. And second, possibilities. Right. There's a good possibility to serve, to connect with more people, to live a life in a certain way. Right. I was able to live in a healthier, happier way. I was at home, never spent so much time together with my parents, right? But at the same time, also did things differently compared to what I would have done earlier. So that led to a lot of new ideas. So 2020 was full of learnings. I wouldn't say it was smooth year. It was full of disruptions, some very difficult times as well. Very. I was also bedridden for 2 weeks. I don't know if it was COVID or just burnout, but it was difficult time. There were patches of difficult time in 2020, but also patches of some very wonderful times as well.
Wow, that sounds quite a year. And I think a lot of us can relate to, that. So, Ankit, I mean, it has been such a crazy year for everyone. I mean, crazy is probably not the appropriate word, but yeah, it has been a year full of upheavals, right? And I've I've seen your entire journey, professional journey, and you've done things which are not conventional at all. In fact, so I can relate to that quite a lot, apart from just the 2020 also, because I've not done a lot of conventional things in my life. In fact, I think right now we have reached a place where we have similar interests and passions. Even the clothes that we're wearing are quite similar. The choice of specs that we have is quite similar. But still, I would like you to please summarize your professional journey. How did you make decisions of switching over from the conventional path to what you have been doing?
Sure. Um, I think I just wanted to live my professional life with as much integrity to myself as much as I can. I did not, for a long time, I kept on making decisions for future, and I felt it was a trap. So the day I felt it was a trap, I started living for the present. So learning to be integral towards myself, and being authentic about it, and also being uh, uh, being fearless about it. It's very it, I see lots of my friends saying, I want to do that, but I want to do that, but. And I think I remember I was in a very bad phase myself in my life, and my friend had just quit his very decent job, and he said, if I don't risk it now, I can never risk it again. And for me, that's stayed true throughout, right? That friend is no longer taking any more risks, but I'm like, if I don't risk it now, when can I risk it again? I don't know. So, and believe me, I've never regretted a path that I've chosen, where I wanted to be authentic towards myself and being fearless about it. I've never regretted it, not even once. My journey has always been that, okay, I don't want to say that I don't want this. Let me try it out if I want this or not. Initial first few years of my career after college were very difficult because every 6 months I left with this idea that I will try it out. But every 6 months I was changing, and once I had changed three, four things, and even I felt, okay, there's something wrong with this approach. This can't work. But
So, Ankit, I would like to stop you there and please tell us in detail as to like you did your civil engineering from NIT,
yeah,
and then after that, like what were the different things that you were trying out?
yeah. So maybe I can begin from where my civil engineering went, right? So I grew up in a small town, India. Jalandhar is where I grew up in, and just stepping out of Punjab when I was 16, I think was a big thing. I went to study in the city of Nagpur. That was a big thing, right? Like Jalandhar is a small city, and I'm in a bigger city comparatively. It's not. It was not a metro, and not all of that. It's still a bigger city, so that exposure was very good. Going to a college where people from all over India are there, right? Me coming from one small school, and then suddenly the world has opened up. So that was very beautiful, and I did carry those influences with me. So I think after I remember one moment in my college when my friend came and asked, third year, all of us are going to join this coaching classes for this particular exam. You know, you owes
Okay.
us this much. It was CAT actually, MBA,
Oh, okay.
and I was like, you know what? I never thought about it. I can't. Don't commit. I'm not committing right now, but I will give it a thought. Now, there were friends in my college, Saurabh, who from first year itself were planning for GRE. There were friends who from second year itself were planning for CAT. There were others who were very clear about GATE. And I'd never thought of my life like this, right? For me, whatever life had offered me till then was very much like more than I expected. But then I realized, oh, this is actually how people make decisions. And I think I made that mistake, right? For next 4 5 years, really tried to plan my life. That was third year, and by fourth year, I had decided that I wanted to be in research. I wanted to do the hardest thing out there. Basically, some bit of ego was also there, and I ended up at IISc Bangalore, Indian Institute of Science Bangalore, and the research that I was doing there at that point of time, there were less than 100 people in the world who were part of that research. So I was very
Please tell us the topic. Please tell us the
It
topic.
was cement nanoscience. We were trying to change the hydration reaction of the cement to make it more sustainable, and it was very fancy and it was very fresh as a topic, and I was very excited. Yeah, a part of me was excited, but also a part of me was sad. sad about, I was waking as I was exploring the world. It was a new city of Bangalore. I was waking up to the realities. People are poor. People go to sleep hungry. People are stuck in traffic. They're not happy, etc. And all those things were really making me sad. And so I was part of me was excited about exploring this new field that I'd chosen for myself, and part of me was really sad about the questions that were coming to me. So, long story short, I did not complete my masters at IISc, and I took up that the fearless path. Uh, and Once I stepped out of IISc, right? Like I did not perform well academically, and a lot of things happened. Once I stepped out of IISc, first thing I did was work as a civil engineer. I did that for 6 months. I made some very fancy big bridges, and because that's what I really wanted to do in college, right? I kept on trying. I wanted to do research. I couldn't do it. Then I said I will make bridges. I went there and I was very grateful that I met one person. I said, I want to build bridges. Like, I have a company. You come and join us. No interviews, nothing. I was very grateful, and did that for 6 months. Built one very big fancy bridge, but then I realized neither this corporate culture is for me, nor this. As a civil engineer, I feel myself very limited. A structural engineer rather. And then I went on to teach for a year. I taught in a civil engineering college in rural Rajasthan. That was, I would say, turning point. Right, for the first time in my life, I was teaching someone. Right, till that point, somebody was teaching me, and I realized how difficult this is. Right, I was always judging my teachers. You know, this could be better, that could be better. But when I was in that shoes, I realized how difficult one that role is, how important that role is. And I won't claim I taught much to my students, but I can claim I learned a lot from them. That really opened up my life. They helped me discover my purpose. That I enjoy the role of a teacher, facilitator, somebody who enables people to grow. And that's it. Like, I think I decided that I want to work in the education domain. I want to enable more and more people to be their best. I wanted to specifically work with young people, and even those who may not have gotten as easy access in life as probably I got, right? And some of my students were really smart, sort of like really good students, but they were stuck in a situation they were stuck in. So from there, I think I got another very lucky opportunity. I worked directly with the founders of Big Bazaar, Kishore Biani and his early team from Big Bazaar. So basically, I got a crash course in MBA without going to a B school and spending much money there. I could see transactions worth thousands of crores happening in front of me, and I had so much to learn from the best in the field. Um, I think that's
Was that part of the Future Fellows
yeah, it
program?
was part of the Future Fellows program, and
Yeah.
uh,
Kishore Biani is such a I mean, I would say he's such a different personality in the Indian business context. I remember in 2009 I was working as a marketing research apprentice in a small startup, and whenever we would approach any future group company, they all the managers over there, they had this quote or dialogue from Mr. Biani, and they would just tell us straight away to our face that dogs and market researchers are not allowed in the future group. So I think he has such crazy ideas, and that is one of the reasons why he's so successful. So tell us about your crazy experiences with Mr. Biani
yeah,
and the team.
I think, yeah, you're right. They were not market researchers, but they were people like Devdutt Patnaik. We got to spend a lot of time with him. He was the chief belief officer then, and we were part of the subsidiary called Future Ideas with his daughter Ashni. And yeah, I think it's very interesting. He's actually called KB in his circles. So everything would be like, yeah, this is what KB would do. This is how we, there are a lot of stories, a lot of narratives about how Big Bazaar came about to be. Then we were sent to, like, talking about market research. We had to study in wholesale market, any wholesale market anywhere in India. We were given free hand, go and study that market, immerse yourself, and come back like a week. and I picked up, and I'm a vegetarian, and I picked up a fish market in Warsaw, in Mumbai. And oh man, that was one of those. Everybody was like, this guy, hardcore vegetarian, etc. Right? One has picked up fish market to study, and then I really like spent time with the Koli women. Uh, Lots. I understood the supply chain and everything. I think that's what the ethos is there, right? There people would not talk about market research; they would just go and immerse themselves in markets. And I remember, I think it was Sadashiv Nayak who was the CEO of Big Bazaar back then. And I remember when he came and we were presenting our research to him, right? And immediately, right, immediate changes were being made in Big Bazaar then and there. It's like, okay, this is what I'm learning. This is what we can do differently, right? Let's try it out in our that store. There's some 100 stores back then, and he knew like by numbers. Okay, this store that much, this store that much. It's very inspired, right? That level of detail that goes into making things happen. So yeah, learned a lot of that stuff there. Yeah,
All right. And then, so this is so far so good actually, because most of Indian engineers, they don't do work in engineering, but they're working either in management or supply chain or well, something related to a big organization, mostly private. Then what happened? Like after the future fellowship, you kind of moved towards the development sector a lot. How did that switch
yeah,
finally take place? I'm sure you were offered brilliant opportunities within the future group also.
yeah. I think that charm, right? Like once I could see thousands of crores transacted in front of me. I also got to spend a lot of time in the the Bollywood side of Mumbai, right? I was very easily spending time with the upcoming stars of the time. So I could see the glamour of both sides, the business world and the Bollywood. I was sort of clear that this is not the life I want. It didn't attract me so much. In fact, I was very lucky at 25, I got that exposure. I could make easier decisions. And my earlier experiences, right, the experiences which had let me leave IISc in first place, also stayed with me. So once I came back to Delhi, I think again some friends really trusted me. Indus Action is where they were building, and there were opportunities there because of some things happening, funders moving out, a team moving out, etc. So I was like, great, here I have who believes in this idea, and here is an opportunity. Do you want to take a bet with me, right? Like, give me 6 months, let's see what we can do. Otherwise, the status quo will remain. I also will then figure out something else from here. I think that's where actually I would say my entrepreneurial journey started. I would say till 25 I was only learning, and I think that's what I learned in the hindsight. From 21 to 25, for good 4 years after college, when most of my friends were busy completing their MBAs, their GREs, right, or their rising up in their careers, I was basically just gathering more experiences in my life. All of them helped me together to do my, I would say, the next stint, which is from 25 to 28, 29, when I built like two non-profit startups back to back, and I was able to put all of it together. I knew enough about market research, about customer surveys. I knew enough about using technology. I knew enough about enough things to be able to put something together. And I don't think it would have happened without all the experiences that life gave me, with all the chances that I took. I, of course, made a lot of mistakes. I'm not glorifying any of it. In fact, I would still say if you want to start a company, it's okay to get some more experience than when being in a hurry and being in a rat race. And So I started after Indus Action. I spent 3-4 years at Indus Action. That was one place where I learned a lot about development sector. Made very good friends, friends for life. And then while I was finishing in this section, I think that ego trip got me again. Once it got me in 2011, second time it got me somewhere in 2017, 18, when I said I want to go to Harvard. Okay, and I applied for 2 consecutive years to the MPID program for the same reason. Okay, like because this is the most difficult program to get into, right? And of course, I didn't get in. Uh, First time I didn't get in, second time I didn't get in, and that's when I think I also got lessons in humility that I could be more humble and not be hell-bent like this, and maybe could have gotten it. But then I later realized that things happen for good. I shifted my tracks. The 2 years that I could have spent at Harvard, I spent those 2 years building another nonprofit startup, where another person, again, I'm very grateful to that human being. He trusted me with all his family wealth, and he trusted me with all his network of lots of high net worth individuals who said, Ankit, here's something we want to do, which is serve the out of school children in the city of Gurgaon. There were 50,000 young kids, 5 to 6 year olds who are out of school in Gurgaon, and the crores of rupees I was managing at this young age. It's basically a dream come true, right? Like I'm trying to do something which I want to do. There's something who's trusting me with his own money unconditionally to do that, and I'm designing my own learning, right? If I were at a grad school, I would be paying for it and learning something what other people are telling me, right? But here, it's completely reversed with so much trust placed in. So I did that for 2 years. I had some experience of building startups, so I didn't repeat those. I made sure I never repeated those mistakes, but delivered greater value for the children we were trying to serve. That's where I could deep dive into education space, right? How do children learn? How do teachers learn? How do young people learn, etc. Like lots of questions I was able to satisfactorily answer. I won't say perfectly, satisfactorily answer for myself. And that's when I turned 30, right? So I mean, I had these grand dreams for myself for 30 under 30, etc. None materialized, okay, like none. But I was very happy, right? I was very happy with what I had done, very contented. Many of my friends who I was earlier comparing myself with, I didn't have those comparisons anymore, right? I was happy where I was, and they were happy where they were. And and I decided how I want to live my life now, right? Till then, I was living in a say 2 year cycle, 4 year cycle, etc. But this time, I was like, no, I'm not going to live my life in short term cycles. I'm going to plan for the next 30 years straight, right? I'm 30 right now. I'm going to plan for the next 30 years straight. What do I want to do? Like, if I have 30 more years to live, what's one thing I would want to do, right? So, I mean, I by then gathered lots of experiences. I can only build upon what I can know from my
Yeah.
experience.
So, Ankit, I mean, there are so many threads I want
Yeah,
to pull out of this, whatever you just shared, because it's first of all, I mean, it's amazing your journey. It's so interesting. It's so adventurous. But at the same time, the level of self awareness that you're talking about, that you're actually repeatedly talking about, when you had your own ego trips, and when somebody would fall into that trap of comparing with others' life journeys, and then judging yourself and all these things. That self awareness also comes from experiential learning, and from having a network of people who are high achievers or achievers in their respective fields, right? And so a lot of young professionals in India miss out on these opportunities. Now you had the courage and probably the self awareness also, even when you were in the fourth year of college, to probably try and do something different in IISc, in so on. And you could do basically, what most human beings do is check off the list. Okay, this is not something that I want to do, and then your path becomes slightly more clearer, all the more clearer, but it's never really completely clear. And that's what life is actually. So experiential learning is such a huge cornerstone of a lot of people who are doing different things or crazy things like yourself. And when somebody approaches you today, uh, how do you suggest to them that what crazy experiences that they need to be a part of? And do you think there are programs where students can actually just dive into and get these experiences like you've had after making some crazy choices in life?
yeah, yeah. I think in the hindsight, if I would share, just to share an example, to then I'll make the point. I had never read a book outside my curriculum till I had started teaching in that college. Sort of like till 2012, I had never read a book outside my textbooks, designated textbooks, right? I read my textbooks well. I mean, I loved my engineering, I loved my
Yes.
schools, but I did not know that you could take ownership of your learning. I did not know this concept. Okay, but once I did, I was so glad. Right, I was so glad there were books out there who could teach me more. I was so glad that I could write emails to random people in the world, and they respond with some very good advice. Right. So I think. I would say now it's much easier, right? Back then in 2012, when there was 2G internet, and the only way you could communicate to people was through emails, and that also is not easy to find. I think just reaching out to people for help, you'll be surprised, right? How nice people are. Everybody wants the other person to succeed. That, and I think all of this taught me that learning to learn. How can I teach myself? I keep repeating this sentence that my learning is my responsibility. But learning to learn, I feel, has three components. Building on experiential learning, like action, reflection, and silence. I have to do something, right? I cannot keep intellectualizing all the time. I have to do something, and whatever I've done, I have to reflect on it, right? It could have ended in a way I desired, or it could have ended in a different way, in a better or worse off. My reflections will help me how my actions were. I can't be too attached to it, right? Because there could always be something better or something different than the path I'm taking, right? If I'm not open to possibilities, if I'm holding on strongly to one thing, I'm basically closing myself off, right? So I have to be willing to let it go, be willing to be in silence so I can go deeper within, and be open to all the possibilities that are manifesting in this moment. So, balance of action, reflection, and silence. And in all the cycles, right? If you're living on a daily cycle, it's a 24-hour cycle. How much time are you investing in all three? On a weekly cycle, how much
Hmm.
time are you investing in all three? On a monthly, on an annual, on a decade-long cycle, how much time are you investing in all three? Right? Are you closing the loops? I feel is the process of learning, and I'm very diligent about it. Right?
That's amazing. Ankit, I mean, you just said that, when you turned 30 and, suddenly there was this reflection cycle that went on in your
Yeah,
mind. And, a lot of people, especially in the US, I mean, a lot of professors, managers, they have this mantra as well. Your 20s are to screw up, for the lack of, that word. But your 30s are when you actually start working, and then you work hard because, your 20s are basically trying out different things. Well, a lot of people do get stuck in the cycle of, okay, let me just experiment with the rest of my life as well. So they are not able to come out with the experimentation phase. But a lot of people are actually, after being there, done that, they finally settle down on certain things, like what you said. What kind of life you want to know, or live right now, and that realization has come. Do you think that's valid advice for a lot of students out there who are probably in that conundrum? What am I doing with my life? Where am I headed? And I know for a fact, being an educator and interacting with so many of them, I know that this exists on a grand scale. Do you think that's valid advice for a lot of them?
yeah. Um, I think I would say that uh, begin with short-term goals, right? Like maybe I won't use the word screw up. I would say that our society is such that okay, Zuckerberg was a billionaire in his early 20s, right? Or Elon Musk is trying to has become the richest person in the world, trying to solve some of the biggest problems out there, right? But I think once we have to recognize the privilege with the person in this context comes from, number one, and second, what is the history of that person, right? Every individual has gone through a history. Nobody is like born genius, right? They've done some experiments, right? So once I make a decision that that's where I want to get to, but then have short-term cycles there. Right? Say I'm 21, I can have a 1 year cycle for myself because I can imagine it's very hard for a 21-year-old to say next 50 years. Once I'm 25, I can have a 2 year cycle for myself. Right? Next 2 years, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn this in the process. So I think those having short-term cycles help, and always treating these cycles as projects, right? Not something let me try it off and then I'll see. It's a project. I may not continue it later for full time for the rest of my life, But this, say, 3 month cycle or 2 year project, etc., is going to give me these competencies. I'm going to learn about this field, right? I think that's a mental model that helps me, right? When you're doing something, right? When you're engaging in a when you have a project oriented approach to something, you're also creating. You're not just consuming, right? I think that differentiation is very critical because once you're stuck in the consumption cycle, it's very very hard to come out of it.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I was just recording another guest on season two. His name is David Fingeroth. He currently lives in Yokohama, Japan, and so he left California in around 2004, 2005, and since then has been living all over Asia, South Korea, the Philippines, Malaysia, Japan. And towards the end of the show, which I'm going to ask you also, there's a question that I'm going to ask you as well. I asked him, what is that one liner that you want to give to the world to make it a better place? And his plain and simple answer was, don't believe what they say, go figure it out on your own. So I think it makes sense because human beings are s- such that they are so unique in themselves. Everyone is different, everyone's circumstances are different. They need to figure it out on their own, right? And those experiences matter a lot, whatever you get them. It's a matter of choosing which experiences might affect you or might not affect you. And that is a challenge I think a lot of our educational institutions are also facing today. um, Ankit, you've reached a point in your life where you shared with me on our casual call the other day that you want to live in a rural area. How did that come about to be?
Yeah. Um, at one point of time, Saurabh, I was making quite a lot of money, right? I mean, for development sector, the work that I did, it was much more than enough for me. But it was also quite a bit compared to what my peers would be making at that age and at that experience. Yeah. And of course, what do you do with money when you're living in a large city? You splurge. I lived quite a luxurious life, right? Um, that was also the time when this the smoke crisis, right? The pollution in Delhi was peaking. For the first time, Delhi had featured in the most polluted as the most polluted city in the world. Basically, all the luxury that I was trying to spend on, I was not able to enjoy. Right now, what is the point? I spent so much time in making the money. Right? Although I love my work, but money came as a part of it. I spent so much time in making the money, and the circumstances around me was such that whatever I could get from the money, I was not able to, make the best of them, and I felt trapped in that cycle. I would still be okay with it, right? But but the people who I felt were should be concerned more than I did, right? I was really concerned. I felt very heartbroken. Uh, but the politicians, the bureaucrats, the judges, everybody, right, who could do something about it, who were in a power, uh, did not own up to their responsibility, right? That's what I felt. There were only blame games happening, political games, etc. This environment, right? It's mutual destruction. And so I felt okay. Like I think cities are bound to be doomed the way they are, right? Not much has improved in the pollution crisis in Delhi. In fact, most of the cities in India are in that cycle right now. I don't know if this can continue like this forever. At some point of time, nature will, put a full stop saying, and people will start receding from cities. So I was like, okay, if again trying to live with as much integrity and fearlessness towards myself, I'm willing to let go of the luxuries which cities bring because I know that I cannot enjoy those luxuries at all with the circumstances that are prevailing. There's so much noise, all kinds of pollution, right? Noise pollution, air pollution, all kind of pollution, and uh, uh, I think it's just very easier to live closer to nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, to a lot of people, this might sound as a selfish move, which essentially it is. But then they don't realize the bigger problem behind it. India has 30, like 22 out of the 30 most polluted cities in the world are in India today. And I'm not saying that that is the most accurate statistic out there, but then that says a lot already. We all experience that,
Yeah.
right? And that is one of the reasons why I also, in 2015, I just had enough of Delhi NCR. I couldn't live there anymore. And then I just decided, okay, Jalandhar is where I'm gonna settle down. It's a city I can manage, or it's a kind of life I enjoy. It's not madness or it's not chaos
And there
anymore.
are two more things you can look at this trend, right? Last year in COVID, I mean, people who were stuck in Delhi were stuck in Delhi, right, for next 6 months. People who were actually in smaller cities felt more freer, right? They had much more access than people in larger cities had. The larger the city, also greater the fear that you live in, right? Number one. Number two, uh, even large companies, right, Indian companies are realizing this fact that okay, it's very costly to host employees in Indian cities because you cannot compete with the global MNCs. The talent that comes in larger cities, you cannot afford that talent as well, right? So Zoho is one example which comes to me, right? They're completely hosted in small town or rural India. Many startups are coming there, right? So there's a shift which is already happening. The sooner you pick up this trend, the sooner you ride the wave, the more success you will have. It's as simple as that to me. And but you will be only able to get all of this when you're able to see it. And you can only see it when you let go of your own holdings and desires, right? So it's not a big decision for me. It's just a very carefully thought decision. Yeah.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. In fact, I remember in 2016 I was having this conversation with a teacher who had lived all over the world, and he basically asked me, okay, so tell me about India, and like there was so much to tell about India, but then the only thing that I told him was, the mega cities in India are unsustainable, and the future of India actually belongs to smaller cities. So that is what the reality is. In fact, there's another namesake of mine. His name is Saurabh Nanda, and he's also an engineer but senior to me as well. He moved in 2015 from Bangalore to Goa, and he set up a company called Vacation Labs. So that trend is quite evident, and a lot of people are actually doing it. That's a conversation definitely for another podcast. Let me move back to the questions that we have. But such a wonderful conversation so far, Ankit. Thank you so much. Ankit, what motivates you to do all these things and be so honest to yourself and honest to your work?
Yeah. Mm, there's an easier answer and there's a difficult answer. Okay. The easier answer is sort of. It seems like people make decisions for what you have. It seems like that, right? Okay, this person is rich, so let me make friends with him, or this person has so many good qualities, so what can I learn from this person? But in my experience, the reality is people make decisions based on who you are, right? If you seem like a nice person to them, if they've experienced the warmth and care from your side, they'll do anything to be with you, right? They'll give up a lot to be with you, or they'll be willing to listen to you no matter what you have to say, right? I think who you are is a much more important question than what you have, right? And I think when I'm trying to be honest towards myself, I'm constantly trying to discover who I am, and trying to live with as much authenticity towards it as much as I can, right? I think that's very important. I feel that's how world functions, right? That's also not just an indicator or signal of trust. That's also very fundamental to how our society functions, right? The difficult answer is Saurabh, I think it's a choice, right? No matter what you do, you always have a choice, right? You have a choice to go with the flow, and the flow here is dominant trends of our time, where everybody, I feel, not everybody, I would say, but most of the advertisements on television, most of them, uh, are only trying to extract something out of you, manipulate you into doing something else, something which will benefit them, or oppress you, right? Make you feel, oh, you're not good enough, etc. Right? Now, either you can go with this dominant trend of being extractive, oppressive, and manipulative, or or you can very actively, very consciously try to live your life where you're not doing any of this to anyone because you don't want anyone to do this to you, right? That's my pursuit. I want to live a life which is non-violent, which is in harmony with nature, which is like do no harm, right? I know it's very hard, but I want to live a dharmic life. I want to live a life uh, uh, in sync with the laws of nature, in sync with the Indian wisdom that we know uh, can take us towards our liberation.
So that's such an important statement, Ankit. Do you think today's youth in India need more of such endeavors, or they need to get more involved in such endeavors where these things, these I would say, high thinking. We all know about simple living and high thinking. This is exactly what high thinking is, right? So, do you think the youth needs to get involved in such endeavors more and more?
I think it's more than endeavors. I think it's a politics of ideas, Saurabh, in the sense that things which seem old are looked down upon these days. Right? Things which seem modern
Mhm.
seem all by default become aspirational and cool. Right? But in reality, it may not be a statement which may go down well with most people. But these days, no matter what you do, whether you are buying something in some store, whether we are talking to each other, or whether I'm going from one place to another, the money lands up in few people's pocket, right? We don't have much of a choice, right? Now, uh, if most people are just trying to do things for profit, maximizing power or profit, uh, if you choose to one understand how these cycles work, how whatever I'm doing, I'm being an agent, economic agent. I'm an economic agent who's just filling somebody else's pocket, and in that process, I'm keeping some. I get to keep something for myself, or I can choose to break myself free of this cycle and support somebody else, right? With in doing the same. I think it's the awareness of the structural patterns we are stuck in, these large structures we are stuck in, and that awareness I feel is not going to come from endeavors. I think it's going to come from one my own reflections and my own actions. One, it can also come from critical education, right? Why does everything seems to be breaking apart? Right? Why does everybody not seem to be happy? Why are Indian families there's a constant generation divide? Why do small businesses have to suffer? Right? And there are all kinds of questions. And if we start to look at even one of them, most of them converge towards very few simple things. That selfishness, greed, apathy is like a disease of our times. I think that's what I would feel young people uh, need to learn, to be honest.
Wow, that's such a deep answer, Ankit, and that's amazing. That actually shows, the depth of your understanding of spirituality and the current society, capitalism, and all these things involved. And I would love to have more discussions regarding how capitalism is bad and everything. But again, moving back to the
Yeah.
conversation that we are supposed to do today, finally we have arrived at that point after around some 40 minutes of discussion. Um, Ankit, what does Punjab need today?
Yeah, yeah. I think um, for me, Punjab is a very beautiful place. Not just because I call it home. I speak the Punjabi language, but it's one of those very few places where the principles are very much alive. Right? What Guru Nanak gave, "Kirt karo, naam japo, van chako," they're very much alive. I honestly don't know many places in world like this. I did a cycle yatra, Saurabh, last year, October 2019. Uh, the reason being, lots of people, I'd come back to Punjab, and lots of people were talking about, what have you learned about Punjab? And I did not know much, right? Because I was just running one small program, or rather trying to set it up. So I picked up my cycle, traveled for 350 kilometers from Bathinda district to Moga district, and I had no plan, I had no route, I had no money. I just had a cycle and a bag and some stuff in there, which all of it had I'd borrowed from my friends, saying, I'm going to go on this yatra, help me out. And believe me, I did not spend 1 minute doubting my decision. I did not have to look for food. I did not have to look for a place to stay. And I met some very wonderful people. Some of them are very good friends now. And these are all people who work in the farms, are sarpanches, right? Very, very local people who about whom you would not really read in the news, right? And I think I really learned at that time the principles are very much alive, right? The community ethos of Punjab is very much alive, which is not so much in rest of India or rest many parts of the world, right? Of course, it's also degraded quite a bit, and we are facing all the challenges. For me, what Punjab needs right now or these days is just recognizing this heritage we have, right? Heritage which our gurus gave up, heritage of our community, of our connection with our land, which we have. The Punjabi identity is so strong, Saurabh. Like just on Guru Nanak Jayanti's day, we just have to reach out to friends and say, would you give us your, would you donate us to do our program? And so many people anonymously help us do things, right? Friends of friends and people who just get to know about us. It is not so easy like this anywhere in India, right? Where you just say, I'm doing this program in this part of the country. People who live in this part of country, can you help us do this better? It never happens, right? I think there's so many good things in Punjab. We just need to recognize them, acknowledge them, and build upon them instead of trying to fix what's not working. There are lots of things which are not working. I think there's something which are alive only in Punjab right now, and I can go on and on. We just need to value that and build upon that.
That's such a beautiful answer, and definitely the philosophy, the community ethos of Punjab is so unique, and depends so much on collective empathy. That's what I would like to
Yeah,
call it. And it's definitely needed. In fact, I remember a small incident. I was traveling from Jalandhar to Chandigarh. I was driving my car, and although people say you should not give out lifts to people, but I generally just do those stupid things. So I just stopped my car for a young boy, having a bag on his shoulder. He looked really tired. I said, chalo aa jao, just sit inside the car. And he was basically he worked on one of the toll bridges between Jalandhar and Chandigarh, so one of the toll gates. And he said, my shift got over, and I just want to get home, but the bus that I was going to catch is has left, so I can't I'm not able to find anything else. Can you just drop me till the next town or something? I said, yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely. He came over, and he was actually not from Punjab, he was from Haryana. And then I just asked him, so how did you end up in Punjab? I mean, there are more toll gates in Haryana also. Why are you not working there? He said, yes, that is true, but I'm really happy that I ended up taking a job over here. And I said, well, servicing the toll gate in India is probably not the most comfortable job in the world, so why are you happy? And he said, I'm happy because the people over here are so nice. They will always call you Virji, they will always call you Vire, Chote Veer. So there's always this fraternity, this brotherhood, my little brother. He said, nobody talks like that in Haryana, nobody talks like that in Western UP. And this just shows the depth of the collective empathy that the Punjabi culture has, right? Ankit, so what are the different challenges that we need, that we have in front of us, so that we can get to that level where this Punjabi ethos of collective empathy is shared with the world, is celebrated, and is
yeah,
recognized?
yeah. I think it's just that's one of the main reason that brings me to Punjab is I think the narrative of development is also becoming more like there's somebody who knows more. Maybe there's somebody else or the same person who's got money, and using that money and using that knowledge, they're going to emancipate someone, right? They're going to save somebody else. They're going to protect somebody else, etc. Right? It's becoming more and more like this in the world, right? But look at Punjabi community, right? They live in abundance. They know how to take care of themselves, right? And they take care of each other, right? Knowing that we're not alone, no one is alone, and we're all together in this. Right? And in this process, they do have and they're always welcoming to outsiders, right? But they never allow outsiders to take over, right? That's what's happening in the current protests as well, right? So I think that's what the world can learn really from Punjab on how do you one learn to create your own, right? Not I mean, make the best of your circumstances, right? Create what you can from what you have. Build that agency, the confidence, that strength within to be able to do that. Then take care of each other, right? Because everybody will go through some bad days, good days, etc. Really take care of each other. And taking care means like it's unconditional, right? Langar is langar. Anybody can come and eat, no questions asked. Really take care of each other, and then from that feeling of fullness, the feeling of abundance, go and out and serve the world. Show the world how do you take care of others, right? Who are not part of your culture, your thing, right? Don't go out and tell them saying, we are here to teach you some things. Um, like Punjabi people, they've gone out in the world and learned all that they did, and then they offer all of it in service, right? I think this idea of development rooted in service and not in trying to uh, save somebody else, I think is what we can learn from Punjab.
That's wonderful. Now, please tell us, Ankit, because I think we've set the right foundation for this final set of questions. What is Sanjhi Sikhiya? What is PYLP, the Punjab Young Leaders Program? How did you think of this idea? Which people are involved in this? There are so many organizations involved.
Yeah,
Please tell us everything
yeah.
about it.
I think Sanjhi Sikhiya is essentially what, as I shared, building upon what Punjab has got the best, which is a community ethos, right? And working towards something which we believe we can showcase to the world, which is a new model of development. I won't say new, but a different model for development, right? So Sanjhi Sikhiya is nothing but a group of people who want to integrate their inner life and outer life, live in harmony. We're not out there to help somebody else, but we also know that we can't do this without really working on ourselves. So at Sanjay Sikya, we say young and old, people who really care, people who are really willing to take responsibility. We come together, uh, we learn together, we work together in order to grow together, right?
Ankit, please explain Sanji Sikhiya also because it's a Punjabi
Yeah,
term. And for all those people who do not know Punjabi, please
yeah,
explain
yeah.
that as well.
Sanjay Sikya basically means collective learning, Saurabh. And I think what is there to human life, it is not just learning and growing, right? Everything else, I believe, can be in service to it. It can be towards my own learning and growth. And I feel learning does not happen as individuals, sitting in a closed room figuring something out. In real world, learning happens when you engage with others, you make some mistakes, you want to do something, and you bring people together, etc. So at Sanji Sikya, we say that some systems out there are not working. Let's say education system in particular, and it's not our prerogatives. We saying we'll go and fix them. That right? There are enough good, smart, responsible, committed individuals who are trying to do it, but they're all doing it in their own ways. Right? There's an academician doing a research. There's a politician really driven. Right? There's a bureaucrat working day in and day out. The teachers who are doing something. The non-profit people in the non-profits. Right? There's so many different kinds of people. So there's so many different people who genuinely care, and the idea is bring all of them together, and we say, can we collaborate? Can we just learn from each other? Can we build upon each other? Right? We've been able to do it in two districts in Punjab right now. One is in Fatehgarh Sahib, second is in Patiala, and the intention is that as Sanji Sikya, can we over the next 5 years establish this working model of doing development differently all over Punjab in the education system. And once we are able to showcase, right, then I think there'll be enough people who will understand this idea. There'll be enough people who will feel committed and confident towards doing it. And then it will spread in different areas. It will spread as something in agriculture, something in healthcare, something in finance, etc. That would be a community driven model of development, which keeps people at the center, and not any kind of power or profit. And PYLP program is one way to get there, where we say we are nurturing young people to take these ideas forward, to practice these ideas in real life, learn to engage with them. Since you're talking about endeavors, so PYLP is one of those places where young people who are, say, 25-year-old version of me who's seeking to do something is very clear on this is what I want to spend next 2 3 years of my life in, and want to be in Punjab, etc. Want to experience what does it feel like to work in rural parts of India, right? So they engage with these ideas. They engage in what we call systems transformation work. They learn to go into these cycles of action, reflection, and silence. It's a very rigorous 2 year program where they, at one level, engage with the education system. At another level, they, in a community setup, they learn to work on themselves. And at the end of 2 years, right, they would have had shared experiences, common vocabulary, deep, trusting relationships, and a lot of commitment towards Punjab. And as they go on to lead their own initiatives, they'll take these ideas of Sanjhi Sikhiya forward, and as they are working with more people get I would say introduced to these ideas of Sanjhi Sikhiya, and because they're rooted in the ethos of Punjab, I would say 5, 10, 20, 30 years, it'll be forest. It'll be forest where nobody would know who planted the first few seeds.
Wow, that's such a beautiful vision. Ankit, please explain us a little bit more about how the PYLP works, as to what are the fellows actually doing, and can you also tell us, I think this is the third cohort that you guys are hiring,
Yes. Yeah.
recruiting
Yeah.
for. So, what have been the learnings for you also and the fellows in the first two cohorts? How did it go? And yes, of course, the pandemic. How did you manage that?
Yeah. Yeah. What does the what do the PYLP fellows do? Yeah. Um, we do essentially two things. Yeah. One, we try to connect panchayats and schools. We say the governance of school is a local responsibility. Even in the new education policy, the Right to Education Act, the school management committees and the panchayats have to work together for the management of the local schools. It's a distant dream. It's an idealized version of how schools can be managed. We try to make it a reality. There are schools in which the teacher living in the village, the sarpanches who have gone and changed, living in that same village for 20 years, sort of, never spoken to each other. For the first time,
Wow.
we do something called Gram Shiksha Sabha. For the first time, they come together in a circle where they're actually talking education, right? Everybody's got a child at home, everybody got grandchildren at home. But for the first time, that person is actually talking about education of children, right? Now imagine that shift, right? They say, okay, this we probably never realized that we did not know enough or we did not do enough. Now, once that realization happens, suddenly this influx of investment and attention and effort that starts going into the schools. Of course, when the money starts flowing into the schools, when attention starts flowing into school, things will flourish, right? More children will come into the schools. The school becomes a focus of attention. Yeah, that's the first thing we do, and we do it invariably in all the schools we are present in. Currently, it's some 500 schools in Fatehgarh Sahib. Yeah, and and this is a community ownership of schools, right? Second thing that we do is we connect teachers with each other. By that we mean is we run something called cluster academic meetings, or in some other technical language, it's called volunteer teacher forums, where teachers come together to plan together, right? To say, okay, this is what I'm going to do next month in my classroom, day by day, and then whatever challenges they're going to face, they anticipate and support each other, saying, okay, this is what you're going to do. I know there's challenges that arise when that happens, right? And believe me, these are the teachers who genuinely want to teach, right? The perception is that government school teachers don't want to teach, they don't show up, they're lazy, they do knitting in the schools. I think these are 30-year-old stories, right? We fail to upgrade them. Government school teachers really work hard, really, really work hard, right? There's just so much of oversight on them. There is so much of you know, managerial accountability that comes on top of them. They do work really hard, but sometimes that becomes too much. Right? If teachers have a space where once a month they can come and share, they can come and connect, they can come and collaborate, what that does is that frees up a lot of bandwidth and mind space to be able to actually focus their attention on teachers rather than only trying to fulfill my day-to-day responsibilities. Right. So, so we do Gram Shiksha Sabha and we do volunteer teacher forums, the cluster academic meetings. These are essentially two structural changes we bring in the education system. Right. Now, structure influences behavior. The people who become part of these spaces, they realize that a different world is possible. Right. A different way of looking at things is possible. The same human beings who would behave differently outside would behave differently in this space. And when they see each other differently, when they connect with each other differently, of course, different results will come out, right? Which is for the benefit of children, which is for the benefit of everyone. Now, this is easier said than done. Right? It sounds just like this. Okay, teachers go. We just have to bring teachers together, and then they'll solve the problems. We just have to bring the panchayat and SMC together, and they'll figure it out. Right? Ideally, yes, but practically, sometimes it takes 6 months before we can actually hold our first CAM and GSS. Right? Sometimes it takes up to 1 month of continuous visits in one particular cluster of schools before we can hold our CAM. And but once it gets started, right, and we get a lot of support from government, from local officials. It's like this, right? Everybody wants it, but nobody knows how to begin. Everybody is feeling skeptical at some point. Some people are holding fear. Some people have other issues, right? So our young people, with their energy, drive, enthusiasm, idealism, etc., to some extent naivety also, are able to navigate all of this. And at the end of 2 years, right, it becomes a regular process. And people start seeing visible changes in the system, which will, of course, manifest in what? Children's learning.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. So that's such a nice way of putting it. Actually, so what it seems to me is, what I understand so far is that these young people, the PYLP fellows, they are acting as catalysts who can be held for accountability, so that a, they are bridging the gaps between the stakeholders. Secondly, what they're doing is they are telling them that the bridges that we are building are quite strong, so
Yeah.
you can easily step on them.
Exactly, right? I think um, the whole world is about relationships, and unfortunately our systems fragment, right? Our systems break people apart, right? As I said, like, same people living in the same village haven't spoken about the same issue which concerns both of them, right? How can that happen, right? It's just no brainer. But if we can build those relationships and we can sustain them, uh, I think once people see the value in that, they start taking it forward. And learning to do that, I feel, is one really hard thing to do. And second, it's the most important thing to do in these times where everything feels broken.
Wow. And how did you manage the pandemic, Ankit? What were the challenges there?
Yeah.
What are the challenges, talking to these young people who might be very rebellious with their ideas and just not listen to you or what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think we're very lucky with the young people. I think the younger generation is actually smarter than us. Sort of, they pick these things up faster than probably you and me would, because we are conditioned. For them, this is the first thing they're hearing, and then it sounds nicer. They're willing to try it out. And of course, there's a lot of space, right? This is not the only thing they do. They do their own projects. They have enough space to explore and experiment, etc. And that rebellion is good, right? That rebellion can, once channelized, is forced to reckon. And about the pandemic, right? Um, there are all, to everything. There's a side which you want, and the side you wish it were not there. Uh, Pandemic really opened up a space for us, right? Like when we're asking people to come together, we're asking them to experience this power of collective problem solving, learning from each other, growing together, etc. It's very beautiful experience. But earlier people had no time because they were so busy in their day-to-day stuff. The pandemic means that day-to-day stuff is on a halt. Nobody really knows what to do. And here we are saying, we got something. Do you want to try it out? People are willing to try it out. Right? And once they try it out, they get a taste of it. They want more of it. So I think we were able to do these our monthly teacher collectives, and during pandemic, because we teachers had a lot of time, which was very hard to do earlier. And once the pandemic got over, like things started opening up, right? The pandemic hasn't gotten over, but once things started opening up, these teachers said, "Can we shift to offline now?" Right? So it became more demand-driven area for us. Things which I think we could do without. I think pandemic was hard for everyone, right? Lockdown, suddenly you have to figure out your life. You're stuck where you're stuck. Many people are not comfortable with technology, right? And so many mental challenges, so many insecurities coming to surface, etc. I think as people, it's very hard, right, to go through all of that and see your best people to struggle and not being able to be with them at that time, right? I think, and it's not just us, right? Some teachers went through it, some children went through it, some parents went through it, and we don't get to see these kind of stories from rural India, but here we are talking about a very large region of India which doesn't have access, right? And but the challenges are real, right? You can't ignore the challenges, but you also feel, I wish I could do more, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Ankit, I really have, I've been observing fellowships in India for a long time. In fact, the first time I was introduced to the concept of a fellowship was right after I finished college in 2009, and I got to know that something called the Jagriti Yatra existed, right? Unfortunately, I couldn't take part in it, although this year I'm trying, I'm hoping that this year I'll be able to take part in it. Um, has fellowships there are so many fellowships in India today. You've been part of one. In 2019 I was part of one in Japan. um, do you think fellowships are becoming a very mainstream way of experiential learning, which can provide better learning to you than universities and a lot of corporations combined?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Absolutely true, Saurabh. I think what fellowships have done, I think they've shown us that the mainstream model of higher education, which is very academic, classroom centric, lecturer centric, is not really working, right? After 4 years, 3 years of college, people still have to go through a 2 year experiential program before they can feel confident, right? What was colleges doing in first place? Most children, most people who go to college, and even the fancier ones, right? The tier one colleges would say that we learned more outside the classroom than inside the classroom, right? So I think fellowships have really shown a mirror to all these institutions that something is not working. We better wake up to the reality, and I think it's just a time now when more and more people, as they are jobless after colleges, they'll realize that we need to do some things differently. Maybe a 4 year degree, classroom, etc., can be reduced to online courses, and people can just go and explore themselves. I don't know, but fellowships are definitely here to stay, and definitely here to be co-opted by all other models or mediums of higher education to provide more hands-on engagement to the learners.
Wow. And so the other day I was talking to Mr. Som Paul. He's also going to be a guest on season 2 of Such Conversation Matter. Another engineer, but very, very interesting career, and currently he's heading a media company. And I was talking the same with him. He's focusing on building the internet infrastructure or internet content infrastructure for the next 500 million Indians who are going to join the internet, right? And we were talking about the unemployment crisis in our country for the past few years, and I told him that there are these amazing fellowships like PYLP which exist, and people are maybe not aware of it. And there are so many passionate people in tier 3, tier 5, tier 7 cities in India who do not even have access to it, right? So Ankit, my question is, like, how do we make sure that PYLP and programs like PYLP, all right, and there are a bunch of amazing programs, you also know about them, how do the tier 6, tier 7 unemployed youth of India get access to this?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly what brings me back to Punjab, and that's why I work in rural India, Saurabh. While PYLP is a program where our vision is to have 100 young people as future leaders of Punjab, we also run a program called Joy of Learning, right? Where we are directly challenging the model of higher education, as I shared. Um, Last pandemic, sometime in May, 25th May actually, I finished the relief work, had gotten my rest and everything. I was like, pandemic is here to stay, right? Things are going to be moving online. What can I do here right now? I just sent out one message to young people, like just in different WhatsApp groups, addressing young people, saying, "Here is like a learning opportunity. We just come together and learn together." Basically, the principles of Sanjhi Sikhiya. Right? Some 16 people from 13 districts showed up from one message that I sent out in 3-4 groups. Right? We finished like a 1 week together, some 10 hours together, and he basically said, okay, there's a question I have. What are your opinions? Somebody would say, there's something I'm struggling with. Can somebody help me out? Very, very free flowing dialogues on connecting with each other, looking within, taking responsibility. Very simple, very free flowing. Right? By the end of 1 week, when we had spent 10 hours, two things happened. We one celebrated that. Okay, like there's something beautiful which has happened. Let's just sing songs, play music, let's just enjoy and before we head out our ways. Very simple. 10 hours. Um, One person said, Ankit, like I really liked it. Would you do it this again? I said, yeah, I'm very happy to do this again. No problem. He said, some of my friends would also want to join. Somebody said, yeah, I can also ask my friends also to join, right? And one program, one batch led to second batch, right? 10 more hours of it. Same thing happened, right? Saying some of my more other friends would want to join. I would want to do this again. I said, guys, like I need more help. Right? मैं अकेला कैसे कर लूँगा, right? It's difficult for me to always getting more, keep doing more and more.
Hmm.
So I said, oh, I'll take care of Instagram. I can make sure you don't have to go out and ask for people. अपने आप आ जाएंगे. Somebody said, you know what? I can do this. I can do that. Kind of 3-4 more batches remaining, and I said some people, I saw some people being consistently joining. I said, why don't you come and help me facilitate this program? So
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4 batches, we completed 30 batches non-stop, 30 week-long sessions non-stop. Some 500 young people from rural Punjab went through this basic social, emotional, and systems awareness. So many non-profits came out of it. So many initiatives came out of it. So many young people cancelled their visas to Canada because they said, now we found friends in Punjab, which we felt they were not there. So many of them went on to set up initiatives in the border regions, in the Delhi border. So many of them have never still met online, have never met offline, but they're
Yeah.
just good friends. I think now I'm talking to somebody. How do we bring all of it offline, right? Like a hybrid of online and offline experience for young people who don't have access, who probably don't have, they're involved in so many other things, basically their livelihoods, so they don't have time also. But learning does not require certificates. Learning does not require a promise of something in the future. Learning requires a feeling of exploring and expansion of joy in the here and now. If you're able to deliver it, that's what we need to do, right? We do not need to talk about what jobs we can offer the young people. They will figure it out. Anyways, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. Please don't try to predict, right? We don't need to tell young people that they're not worth it. They're worthless if they don't have certificates, right? They're already, you're anyways not promising them jobs. They will figure it out, right? We just say, let's come together. Three things: look within, right? Discover your purpose. Look at your aspirations. Are there any blockages, right? Any emotions, any insecurities you're carrying? Can we deal with them together? Make friends, right? You can't do all of this alone. Means the people like us everywhere. Let's just make friends and take some responsibility. You can't be consuming all the time. Let's just take some responsibility to create something, to serve, to support someone. All of this can happen in 10 hours. I've done it with 500 young people.
Hmm.
And all of it happened in Punjabi, and I'm very confident that this can happen, and more and more individuals. By the way, yeah, most important thing, all of this happened at zero cost, not a single rupee transacted. I invested my time, young people invested their time, and we just calculated our time we invested in, and people just paid it forward, right? So I think more and more such models are possible just because one of those possibilities of a pandemic. Right? More and more such models are possible when individuals like you and me are willing to offer our time, young people who are willing to explore and experience. And we don't need fancy degrees, we don't need fancy colleges, we don't need poorly made infrastructure, we don't need corrupt people trying to control others. Things can happen. We just need to trust ourselves and each other.
That's so beautifully put, Ankit. And you've explored the emotional side of things, and the true ingredients from a human being which are required for learning, basically. Also, what you've actually shared with us is the impact of technology and how it can create things and platforms which are without any kind of walls and borders. I mean, I'm a great believer in technology. That is why I also follow societal platforms. I'm a big fan of India Stack, and I truly believe that technology is probably one of those ways we can reach out to people, because we all know the feelings are common. We have a simultaneous crisis of unemployment, youth suicide, and well, corona as well. But I think when everyone is feeling the same, it's just a matter of connection, and that is something you've shown us through Joy of Living. And all the best to you and PYLP Sanjhi Sikhiya. I will be contributing more and more to it as and when it's possible. So towards the end of the interview, Ankit, um, career advice for young students and professionals, somebody who would like to embark on a path which you have.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I think that's the most difficult one. Um, um, I would say discover your own path, right? Don't try to follow me. Don't try to follow anyone, for that matter. Uh, it's not too hard. I think just live true to yourself. Be fearless about it. Right? Don't be afraid of what other people will say. Don't be afraid of what will happen. I think if you're young, if you're in your 20s, world will take care of you. Right? The world is a very nice and a kind place. There are lots of good people who are willing to give very good, high quality advice. And and if you're in Punjab, absolutely no problem. Right? It's just a very nice, kind place. There's a lot of collective empathy, and I think be fearless and be honest to yourself. That's all I would say.
Wonderful. And Ankit, last question. Although I wanted the conversation to be much longer, but one line that you would like to share with the world, one line which can make the world a better place.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all can be little bit more trusting, little bit more caring, and a little bit more responsible in our day-to-day lives.
Perfect. Perfect end to a wonderful conversation. Ankit, thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule and doing this.
Thank you, Saurabh. No, very happy to do this. Very, very happy. Thank you for this opportunity.